This is WGRG 100.5 FM, where we meet the absolute minimum FCC broadcasting standards. It's time to hang on and brace yourself for a community radio program that's frankly indescribable. Let's talk Geneseo. Two guys with nothing better to do on a Friday morning but to talk about our community. Geneseo City Administrator Brandon Meglin and City Alderman Keith Kennett. And yeah, nobody, and I mean nobody, puts the blah in blah 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 like these guys do.
Hey, and good Friday morning. You are listening to Let's Talk Geneseo here on WGRG 100.5 FM. It's a cool 3 or 4 degrees or whatever it is outside, but it's always slightly warmer here inside the WGRG Worldwide Broadcast Center.
Not by much, though.
Not by much. I think we're 4 degrees here in the studio. Not exactly sure on that. But anyway, Keith Kennett along with Brandon Meglin. Good morning, Brandon.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Pretty good. Pretty good. We're going to be going in some warmer temps here, so that's always a ray of sunshine in the extended forecast for us.
Right, and we, and in a way, we're kind of like a ray of sunshine. Aren't
Absolutely.
we, on a Friday morning? Or we're like maybe not sunshine, but just like a bright glow in the sky.
Yeah.
Not quite a sunshine, but not darkness. Somewhere in between.
Somewhere in between works.
Yeah. All right. So we'll turn the keys over to Brandon and let you start us off. Full show today here on Let's Talk Geneseo.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think first we wanted to mention. We wanted to give a shout out, I guess, to the Geneseo police officers that worked the investigation that I'm sure many people have read about, seen on local media, local social media for the city and other agencies as well, where there was another ATM skimming incident that happened here in Geneseo at Farmers Bank, and really proud of the officers that worked that case in the bank, immediately detecting that, and then because of our flock camera network system that we have in Geneseo, which is connected to the flock cameras across the country, they were able to work with other agencies, and those suspects were apprehended in Missouri, who were hitting multiple ATMs from the Chicago suburbs down south, down into the Houston, Texas area, I believe. So really neat thing that an agency like small town Geneseo Police here really cracked this open, and it's turned over to the FBI now, and Gene Carson, Deputy Chief, is spending a lot of time on that and coordinating with them and other agencies. But really neat thing for that just shows what a great force we have and dedication to work these kinds of cases. So,
and not to get too deep in the weeds, but skimming would be as one criminal would modify an ATM machine. They're really quite sophisticated to where they can lay fake keypads. They have little cameras and what have you. What they're trying to do is basically get your password and that sort of information so that they can then access your account and do all that. But on a quick look, and even the photography that the police department gave, boy, on a quick look, that's pretty convincing stuff.
Yeah.
But hats off to the police department, and don't mess with Geneseo. If you want to do something inappropriate, you take that somewhere else.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, with those camera systems covering Interstate 80 in and outbound, it's they're going to see you. It's not the place to mess around.
And when we installed those, there was a little bit of grumbling about we're going to be monitoring someone going to Cambridge to the bar or something.
Yeah.
There were just some privacy concerns, and hey, and I get that. I'm walking with you guys on that. But again, this is exactly what it was for. No, if something happens, we can easily use that data, do a quick search, and this is exactly what it's for. So
very limited use. It only pings on plates that they're specifically looking for, so it's not full Big Brother where they're watching everybody's activities moving around.
I usually get to the wind turbine before I get pulled over.
Right.
But, there must be something on my plate that comes up. Who knows? But anyway, seriously though, great job, police department, on that, and to the brothers serving down in brothers and sisters in Missouri, and the FBI and everybody doing everything they do to keep us safe.
Yep. Yep, but we'll turn our attention. We have two guests here in the studio today. Wait a minute.
Well, I was going to be a little more subtle with it, but I'll bring it in kind of low.
Nice.
Mark Grabochevsky.
Morning, Mark. Morning, Keith. Morning, Brandon. Is there any better way to start your Friday morning, ladies and gentlemen? Either a little bit of 2112 Overture by Rush or 6 cups of coffee. Either way, it's a boost to your senses.
Yeah.
I think they're one and the same, Mark.
I think
They
so,
are
too.
one and the same.
Mark, you're not getting that kind of treatment on WQAD.
No.
They're not giving you intro music.
Those guys don't care about you.
Yeah.
But here you get
been
your own
7 years
your own
there.
walk-up music. It's all good.
7 years WQAD. No 2112 Overture by Rush is an introduction. Maybe
Yeah.
I've got to make some phone calls.
You might have to get to year 10 for you to get intro music on the local news, I
Or
guess.
is that what makes this so special? Is that, the local community, we have Keith here, willing to take that extra step.
We're special in a way, aren't we, Brandon?
Yep, absolutely. We also have Joy Bush with us from the cancer support community of Iowa and Northwestern Illinois. We'll be talking to her here in a little bit as well. Sorry, Joy, we don't have any intro music for you yet.
That's okay. I won't take offense or anything.
We're just happy you haven't left crying by this point.
Right.
Yes. So.
Right. Yep. So, Mark, welcome back to the program.
Good to see you both again. Yep.
Yeah.
Great to be here.
New year. Just had a small little thing happen down in Washington, D.C. as well that, impacts some of the conditions that we often talk about here with the economy.
Just a tiny event.
Yeah. But, what are some of the things that you're looking for? What are you watching closely as we enter this new year here?
I think by far and away one of the biggest concerns on Wall Street is the state of inflation. If we kind of take a step back and look at some of the history of this inflationary landscape we've kind of been a part of, ever since kind of reaching that, or after reaching that 40-year high of 9%, inflation rate back in June of 2022, we did kind of see this slow, gradual decline in the inflation rate. 12 months later, in June 2023, inflation had actually declined to 3.1%. Now, make no mistake, consumer prices were still rising, just at a slower pace. With an inflation rate of 3.1%, that still meant that consumer prices were 3.1% higher than they were 12 months before. But then that downward pace, that downward trend of inflation that we had really hit this brick wall. And, inflation has yet to fall back down to that ideal target rate of inflation of 2% that we all want to get back to. In fact, the last time the U.S. economy had an inflation rate at or below 2%, you got to go all the way back to February of 2021. But then over the past, 3-4 months, inflation has kind of reignited, and it's actually kind of started back on an upward trend. In December, the national rate of inflation jumped from 2.7% up to 2.9%, the highest inflation rate we've had dating back to July of last year. If you look at what's called core inflation, which kind of strips out and removes, the more volatile and seasonal food and energy prices, inflation is reported even higher at 3.2%. So, here we are 4 years later, and we have an inflation rate that seems to be drifting, farther and farther away from that 2% target rate of inflation. So, in my opinion, that remains front and center on Wall Street going forward for 2025.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and obviously all these things are tied together, Mark, but, what a lot of people look for in their own pocketbook and wallet is the interest rates on credit cards, home mortgages, those that may want to relocate, move into a new home, hopefully here in Geneseo. What's in the crystal ball there, and do we think rates will decline at any point here with some of the changes we're seeing?
It all ties back to what ultimately happens with inflation. Because if you remember, when inflation started going higher, up to that 9% rate of inflation we had back in June of 2022, that ultimately triggered this spike in interest rates. Because, one of the tools the Federal Reserve has at its disposal is raising interest rates to help bring down inflation. By raising interest rates, it makes it more expensive for consumers, for businesses to buy those goods and services on credit. So the ultimate goal by the Federal Reserve is to try to gently tap the brakes on consumer spending by raising interest rates. And look, the Federal Reserve has come out and said, we'd like to start lowering interest rates. But again, what we've seen over the past 3-4 months or so is that gradual uptick, that gradual upward trend in inflation, so that it's really hindering the Federal Reserve's ability to start lowering interest rates. Maybe 6 months ago there was some hope among Wall Street analysts and traders that, maybe in 2025, we'd get 3, 4, maybe even 5 quarter-point reductions to the Fed funds rate, which kind of influences interest rates on credit cards, bank loans, home equity lines of credit, and mortgages. But now that, again, inflation has started to reignite, and, it's if we get 1 quarter-point reduction to the Fed funds rate by the end of this year, I think we might be able to consider ourselves lucky. Again, that's going to be, I think, the focal point of newly appointed President Trump, who took office recently, and it's going to be a wait and see.
Mm-hmm. Then how about the stock market? I know that, I guess I've been pretty excited about some of the recent statements that I've seen come through. Personally, we've seen, I think, in the past week here some good days as well, but what are we looking for there?
For me, the general theme, kind of what we've seen over the past year and a half, is this general rise in the stock market that's really being fueled by artificial intelligence. We've spoken before about the Magnificent Seven, those mega tech companies like NVIDIA, Alphabet, Facebook, Tesla, and the others, and it was this Wall Street's fascination with artificial intelligence that really drove much of the stock market throughout 2023. But since then, we've kind of seen a little bit of choppiness, and it goes back. I've been harping on this all morning, but again, it's inflation. The longer inflation remains higher, the longer interest rates remain higher, and we've kind of, as a result, we've kind of seen a lot of choppiness and volatility in the stock market over the past 3-4 months. In my opinion, until Wall Street gets some level of comfort that this inflation problem is finally resolved, again, in my opinion, I think we're going to see bouts of choppiness in the stock market. Overall, over the last couple of days, again, the market's kind of been moving higher on the artificial intelligence play, government deregulation, the tax cuts becoming permanent. But again, for me, it's what happens to inflation is really going to drive much of the direction in the U.S. stock market for 2025.
All right. Well, thank you, Mark.
Hey, great to be here as always.
Bringing clarity to a world that sometimes can be a little foggy and financial matters. But it certainly has been interesting since the election results and stuff. But yeah, choppy would be a good word.
Yeah,
that you have days of glory and then days of, oh boy.
And if you look at any of those major stock market indexes like the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, you kind of see this trend, and then you see a little bit of a sell-off. It starts trending higher again. You see a little bit of a sell-off, and you can really track those pullbacks in all of the major stock market indexes with news coming out that inflation is remaining stubbornly high. Because Wall Street knows that, the Federal Reserve is not going to be able to start lowering interest rates until this inflation gets under control.
And as a long-term, if you are a long-term investor, though, probably the old adage of, just tough it out. That over time, it will eventually increase, and you have a steady rate of return. Although sometimes it can be tempting to go, boy, this doesn't look good, and you want to, jump in and out. But when you jump in and out, more often than not, it ends up not being better than if you just stayed with it.
Yeah, and one of the most difficult things to do for investors is just trying to take that emotion out of your investing decisions. If you're a long-term investor, obviously there's going to be these short-term dips, blips, ups and downs, and it's just kind of staying focused that, okay, you're in the stock market, you're investing for the longer term, whether it's 3, 5, 10, 15 years down the road or whatever, and just kind of trying to take, panic, fear, uncertainty out of the equation when you start making those investing decisions. Because anytime you put your money into the market, you're putting your money at risk, and you just want to make sure you have that clarity of why you're investing, why you're putting that money at risk.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, again, listen to what Mark says, not so much me, but he knows what he's talking about. But again, thank you, Mark, very much, as always, for the
great to be here. Great to see you again. First time back for the new year, and looking back to many more.
As many of our listeners know, Mark is also one of our star recruiters for other guests onto the program of bringing people in, from organizations in the Quad Cities especially, or groups that may have fun things for families to do or go see, or organizations that provide important services to those here in Geneseo as well. And so, we're thankful that Mark brought Joy Bush in from the Cancer Support Community of Iowa and Northwestern Illinois with us today. And as always, Mark will be jumping in here with questions as well with Joy. But welcome, Joy.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So we always like to start with a first-time guest of, if you can kind of explain what the organization is and what your role is there.
Sure. So Cancer Support Community is a fairly new name, probably to the Quad City area. Probably most everybody, all your listeners will know it as Gilda's Club. So we just went through a name change in July. But we provide psychosocial support for anyone impacted by cancer. So that can be the person with the diagnosis, their friends, family. And we're really there just to help them manage. When you get a cancer diagnosis, it's overwhelming, and there's a lot of information to filter through and a lot of different feelings that you're having. And so if we can help them manage that emotional aspect of it, there's studies and research that prove that helps them better manage their diagnosis and helps the whole family unit, communicate better and function better as a family and keep as much of a routine as they can.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, give us a little bit of your history. What's your background? Where are you from, and what led you to this career?
Sure. So I always start off by saying I never ever thought I would have a career in nonprofit. Didn't really know all the opportunities that there were in the nonprofit world, but I grew up in Iowa. I've lived in Iowa most of my life, lived in Illinois for a short period, but grew up in a small town in northern Iowa called Rockford, Iowa. It's a town of about 800-900 people, and then went to Iowa State and majored in fashion merchandising. And right after college, started with Von Maur and their executive training program, and was a buyer for them for almost 20 years. And then I say life happens. My husband, at the age of 45, was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And so I was trying to help him manage his diagnosis. We had 3 young girls. They were 14, 11, and 4 at the time. Trying to work full-time, manage all of that. And so after he passed away, my mom helped me a lot, because I would travel a lot with that position. And unfortunately, 6 months after my husband passed away, my mom was diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor, given a week to live. Fortunately, she lived about 3 more months. But so when I lost her, I really had to kind of re-examine my life and think, gosh, I can't travel like this being a single mom. What am I going to do? And I'd look at all the job descriptions and I'd think, gosh, I'm not qualified for these. I don't know. Nothing sounded interesting. And so I knew I wanted to do something to give back, because so many people helped us so much when our family was going through that. And so one of my friends he worked at the hospital, in one of the hospitals there locally, and he heard about a position at Gilda's Club, and he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I think you should look at this." And so I went and talked with them, and started out as their development director back in 2016. And then shortly after that, our executive director moved to our headquarters for Gilda's Club and Cancer Support Community in Washington, D.C. And so when she moved, then I moved into the executive director position. And so it's just been a wonderful experience. We did not utilize Gilda's services when we were going through it as a family. And so I say that's kind of my motivation, is I want to make sure that everybody in the community knows about our services and knows all the things that we do so that they know to reach out to us when they're going through that.
Well, we were talking earlier this morning out in the lobby. We were kind of talking a little bit about the history of Gilda's Club, and for us older people, we remember Gilda Radner from the original cast of Saturday Night Live. But it was a really fascinating story of how this Gilda's Club came about. Through her. So I'd love for you to be able to, kind of convey that story that we were talking about earlier on to our listeners.
Sure. Yeah, so Gilda Radner, many of you will probably remember from her role on Saturday Night Live. She was part of the original cast, the first female cast. And so she went through a cancer diagnosis. She had ovarian cancer. She had struggled with fertility issues for many years and ended up then finding out that she had ovarian cancer. And when she was going through that, it was a time when you didn't really talk about cancer publicly, and she was going through a very public diagnosis. And so she attended programs through something called the Wellness Community at that time. And she later said that, she could have afforded the best support out there, and what helped her the most were the free services that she got through the Wellness Community. So when she knew that she was not going to make it through her diagnosis, her wish was that there would be places like the Wellness Community across the U.S. Where families could receive those services. And so there was just the one location, the Wellness Community, when she was going through it. And now today, Cancer Support Community, we have 197 locations across the U.S. and actually in Canada, and actually in Japan and Israel as well. So we say we're a worldwide organization, but kind of neat. It came full circle. So they established the Gilda's Clubs. We were actually the number 7 to open here in the Quad Cities. But back in, I think it was 2009, the Wellness Community and Gilda's Club merged to become the Cancer Support Community. And so at that time, we had the opportunity, we could stay a Cancer Support Community, or we could stay at Gilda's Club, or we could become a Cancer Support Community. We chose because the community knew us so well as Gilda's Club to stay that way. But we recently changed our name back in July as we expanded our services across the state.
I think a lot of people recognize Gilda's Club, off River Drive in Davenport, that big Victorian house up on the hill. But to my understanding, you're no longer there. Where have you moved to, and what really kind of prompted that change?
Yeah, so that was a really tough decision for us. That was right when I started in my executive director role. Nothing like getting your feet thrown to the fire right away. But we were originally planning on remodeling the mansion to better meet our program needs. And as we started meeting with community partners and members and hospital partners, they said, is this really the best use of funds to continue to put this into this big historical building, and will it truly fully meet your needs? And so we re-examined, and during those conversations with the community, both hospital systems had indicated that they might have potential space for us. And I'll be honest, at first we're like, nope, absolutely not. We're not going into the hospitals. The beauty of our programs was it was that refuge away from the hospitals. You felt like you were walking into somebody's home. It was very comfortable, very welcoming. And so we had one of our affiliates down in Texas had moved into hospital systems. And so I reached out to them and said, can you send me pictures of your clubhouse? And so the board really, right away, the first thing they wanted to look at was, what do our members want? And so we showed the members pictures and we said, okay, what if it looked like this? What if you walked in and you felt like you weren't walking into a sterile hospital environment, but still felt like you were walking into somebody's home? So ultimately, we made that decision. And in doing that, too, That bridge, even when it wasn't going through construction, can be a barrier for people. And so sometimes people crossing into Davenport, the people on the Illinois side, it was a struggle for them. And so we now have 2 locations. We're at Trinity and Moline, with a location just down the hall from their cancer center. And then in Davenport at Genesis West, Mercy One Genesis West, directly above their cancer center. And it has been the best decision. We have just seen tremendous growth. We're more accessible to people. They can come and see what we're all about right when they're there for getting their appointment. So it's been a really good decision.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, you kind of touched on it, but for those listening in Geneseo, what specifically the actual programs, what are some of the triggers, or how would they know if they could utilize one of the programs that you offer?
Sure. So we kind of have 5 core components. Probably what we're most well known for is our support groups. And so we have support groups for the person with a diagnosis. We have a support group for friends and family. And then we also have a support group for those that have lost somebody to cancer. And then there's some specialty support groups, breast cancer, gynecological cancers, a prostate cancer group. And then we have amazing programs for children and teens as well. So that's the number one thing. Just giving people a safe space where they can meet with other people going through the same thing and feel like they're not alone in their thoughts and what they're feeling, and get advice on things that worked for other people. And then we have educational programming where we'll do twice a month. We have different topics. So it could be managing the cost of care, how to talk to kids about cancer, how to manage those symptoms and side effects. Just a variety. We sometimes talk about latest technology or latest treatments that are coming out, and have different experts in our area that come and talk to us. And then we do healthy lifestyle activities. So chair yoga, mat yoga, meditation, just again, not only helping them manage their stress, but there's a lot of benefits to yoga that will help with the symptoms. So like breast cancer, you can get lymphedema. It's a very common issue. And so the yoga will help them drain the lymphatic system and help them kind of manage that. And then we do social events. So sometimes not even coming and talking about cancer, but just we have therapy dogs that come in. We do cooking and conversations where we pick a recipe and they all just stand in the kitchen and make the recipe together. And then we provide resources and referrals. So if there's not something that we can do, we'll help people, just like what a typical social worker. We have 3 full-time licensed mental health professionals on staff that lead all our support groups, but they're also there to help them be that resource as well. But one of the things for the listeners and for people in Geneseo, sometimes maybe coming to the Quad Cities can be a little overwhelming and feel like we're, on another island. But we have virtual programs now. So our virtual support groups, anyone across the state of Iowa or Illinois can access those. And those happen each week for the person with a diagnosis and the friends and family.
Good to know. So what, as far as things that you have cooking, ambitions or long-term, short-term goals for the organization, things coming up, anything that you'd like to share there?
Yeah, so just as I mentioned, we're just seeing tremendous growth. Last year we had a over 40% increase in unduplicated people served. So like I said, we're just seeing more and more people coming to us, which has allowed us to be able to expand our programs, offer more support groups, offer more programs for people to attend. And obviously all of that takes funding. And so really trying to be intentional and look long term, how can we continue to maintain this growth and make sure that we are here for another 25 or more years. And so we don't receive any state or federal funding. We don't bill insurance. And so everything really does come from the community. And so we have several fundraising events throughout the year. We have one coming up on April 5th, kind of playing homage to Gilda Radner and the comedy. It's a comedy show called Live from QC. It's Saturday night. And so we have a comedian that comes in, local band favorite, Funktastic 5, performs. And so just really trying to watch and look at how we can keep that growth going and keep, impactful programs.
Are services free?
Yeah, great point. Yes, everything is 100% free of charge, so we do not charge for anything. And a lot of people, when we were named Gilda's Club, sometimes that was a misconception because it said club. They thought there was a membership. They thought there was a fee involved. But yep, everything's entirely free.
How can the community, kind of get involved either through donating time or donating money and maybe want to make an impact within your organization?
Yeah, there's lots of, like I mentioned, we have several events throughout the year that you can always attend. But even simple things, we're actually just launching, we're calling it Become a Gilda's Gem, and so give every month. So, even a donation of $5 a month can be impactful. We say for $40 a month, which is your weekly trip to a coffee shop nowadays, that can support a member for an entire year, their services for them. And so our website has all those different opportunities. Businesses, organizations, they can do Gene Days at their organization. We have a lot of companies that do that. And so I just want to encourage people. Sometimes it can be overwhelming and, we all have our own things that are going on. But even the smallest donation can just really help make a difference to nonprofits and to somebody facing a cancer diagnosis.
And what are some of your bigger fundraising events that you have planned in the upcoming months or scheduled for 2025?
Yeah, so the live event is our most current one coming up. That's our biggest fundraiser of the year. We usually raise over $100,000 at that event. So so that's a really good one. And then we have a golf tournament. Usually that happens first weekend of May, and then we do a run every year as well. And we have an exciting new event that we're bringing called Dragon Boats. Have any of you ever seen a Dragon Boat Festival?
You're going to have to explain that to us a little bit here while you got time.
So it is a boat of, I think you can have up to 22 people. We're going to do it at 16 just to make it a little safer our first year. But they will row. So you have somebody at the head of this row, I guess I'll call it a rowboat. And they're drumming to keep the beat of everybody rowing, and then everybody works together, and it's just a really fun event. We have some other affiliates that have done it, that it's been really, really successful, and just a great team building way, or team building activity for people to do. Businesses can get involved, families, that have maybe gone through a cancer diagnosis can celebrate their loved ones or remember their loved ones and get a team together in their honor. And so we're just getting started with that. That'll be in September out at Westlake.
Keith, do you think the city council might put forth the team and use your muscular endurance to power the Geneseo city to victory on that?
I was just thinking that, Mark, that we could do that. Nothing about there is no muscular endurance or anything, but certainly if somebody needs an anchor, I could fill that role.
Or maybe you could beat the drum.
I could do that too.
Yeah.
I could have my son-in-law teach me about percussion.
That actually sounds like a pretty neat event. When is that again for the community?
That one is September 21st.
Okay.
Yeah, so all these events, you can go on our website under our annual event tab. I think it says at the top ways to give, then annual events, and it'll tell you all the different fun ways that you can do it. But yeah, we talked about doing a mayoral's cup, so getting all the mayors from the surrounding cities, and you guys can have a little competition.
Keith, maybe you can put some feelers out at City Hall?
No, I think we talked to Sean.
Yeah.
In fact, we'll volunteer him right now.
He's not here to defend himself.
Exactly.
We've got one participant from the Geneseo City Council.
Yeah. You could make
the mayor and that anchor guy.
Two.
You could make it really interesting by doing it on the Mississippi.
Yes, we did. We actually did look. The company that helps us, they're out of Canada, and he actually flew in, and he was really amazed. He loved he's like, you guys have amazing waterways here. Yeah. So he did look at the Mississippi as one of the locations, but he's like, it's a little choppy. We don't want people going overboard.
Yeah, that probably.
You
don't want a good idea going bad.
Yeah. Throw you the life preserver ring, Keith.
Yes, that would be something no one would want to see. But anyway, Joy, we appreciate you coming in this morning. What an important organization that that you provide these services, but also too, I was touched by, and sorry for your loss, but how you took something, and I would think though that you probably could have a special way to relate with people going through this just because of your experiences. So how great to turn that into a positive and help others. So very, very cool.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Thanks again for having me.
Yeah.
Well, we hear the talking in the background, so we know that it's probably time for us to start pulling the plug on this one.
Yeah,
But Brandon,
that's the cue.
any final thoughts? Any any other city stuff? I've been kind of off the radar screen, so you can fill me in at the same time.
Yeah, we do have a committee of the whole special city council meeting coming up on Tuesday here, the 28th, this upcoming Tuesday. So agenda will be published for that this afternoon. So stay tuned for that. If you're interested in following city business, we'll have more talk on the solar project on the north side of town that is planned for Tuesday. We'll be working out some of the presentation today for that, but we should see that Tuesday in discussion. Then a couple other things, not a lot. It's that time of year where we're really focused on now starting to get the projects ready for spring construction start, and we'll be talking about more on that program in the coming months as projects are ready to kick off with some of the infrastructure, especially on North State. We'll see, March time frame. The construction start from Palace Road to Wells to complete what we call phase 1 of that project. And then we're in meetings and discussions right now about the funding of phase 2, which is from Wells to Ogden on North State, which is the complete infrastructure replacement of over century-old infrastructure of water, sewer, and everything underground, which is the impetus to that project. And brand new streetscape, decorative lighting will extend all the way up here to the high school. So it's all in the works.
There you go. And no show next Friday? Correct?
No show.
No school next Friday?
Oh. I'll have to check on that.
Yeah, we're there may or may not be a show
I think
next.
I actually booked somebody.
All right. Well,
So
there you go.
we
Great.
we'll have to talk offline on that one.
Okay, we'll take that off
She's
here.
probably listening too.
Okay. All right. Well, slightly awkward moment, but we've had worse, haven't we,
Don't
Brandon?
replan your Friday yet if you're listening.
All right. Well, Brandon, thanks as always. Mark, Joy, thank you very much for coming in. And we encourage you to stay tuned for Justin. He'll be here with some weather information in a bit. And this has been Let's Talk Geneseo on WGRG 100.5 FM in Geneseo. Have a great weekend.
Share this with you. I feel I'm on top.